Paul Morland is a demographer and wrote No One Left, Why the World Needs More Children. The figures that we're discussing, is that something the nation should welcome or something about which it should have concern? Which is it? Good morning.
Good morning. I think it's a matter of which the nation should have great concern. We have several times more immigrants every year into the country now, every year, than we had in the whole period from the Norman Conquest to the Second World War, within the British Isles, say. So people move within the British Isles. Mm-hmm. We're having rapid demographic change, ethnic change. And the reason I think we should be concerned is that the mass of people clearly don't want that. And politicians...
How do you know that, Mr. Morland? Just to stop you there, if I may, how do you know they don't want it?
Every survey suggests it. Every survey of public opinion suggests it. And we've had politicians who understand that and talk the kind of rhetoric. You've just heard Yvette Cooper talk. We've had politicians like Cameron talking about tens of thousands. And on the one hand, you've got the public, which has very strong views on this. And on the other hand, you have politicians who talk and do absolutely nothing.
And yet, the counter-argument is that we are an ageing population, and if we're going to have people who work in our hospitals, possibly work as carers, help pay the tax, we need to fetch folk in. Mr. Morland.
I completely agree with that, and I have argued for a long time that what we need is not only to restrict immigration, but to increase our birth rate. When I joined the workplace in the 80s, there were a couple of people in their 20s joining the workforce for everyone leaving. Now the two are roughly balanced. We do need more workers, but so first of all, we need a government that will do something about the birth rate. Having never said anything about the birth rate, from frontline politicians, Keir Starmer now specifically rules out doing anything. I'm not going to tell people how many children to have, was his words. No one's asking him to do that, but there are all sorts of ways quite moderate centrist governments like that in France can encourage people to have more children. But the other thing is, if you look at the numbers coming in, a relatively small number of those are going into the workforce, a vast number are dependents and others. So although we do need workers, and there are other ways of getting them than endlessly tapping the world's best and brightest, although we do need those workers, a lot of the people coming in, the majority, are not actually going to be working, but are going to be dependents.
How racially motivated is it to moan about people coming into this country?
I think it's absolutely right for people, or people absolutely have the right, to say we do not want endless mass migration from the rest of the world, and that we want our descendants to be the predominant phenomenon in this country. I think I'm the child of immigrants. I think there's always been immigration, and we're perfectly happy to have some immigration. But I don't think there's anything wrong. People from Japan to Tunisia, our leaders from Japan, Tunisia, politicians are saying we want a continuity of our population. We don't just say we have one group in one century and a totally different group in another. It's perfectly legitimate, and I don't think it's at all racist to say we want the predominant element in this country to continue to be the element that has always been here for thousands of years. I don't think there's anything wrong with that or anything racist with that.
Paul Morland's book is No One Left, Why the World Needs More Children. He's a demographer. Thank you for your time. 13 after 7. Listening to that is Frances Swaine, who's an asylum and immigration lawyer at Leigh solicitors firm, joining me now. The Prime Minister says the joint police action yesterday was a significant piece of the jigsaw. How supportive would you be of those comments? Good morning to you.
Good morning. Well, the UK's National Crime Agency seems to have worked well with our international partners in terms of looking at an issue which is really related to law and illegal migration. So it's something which, in terms of people smuggling, I think ought to be supported. Well, as you mentioned yourself earlier on in the programme, we don't actually have any form of conviction yet.
No.
But from the news that's been given, it does appear to be an international smashing of a particular illegal smuggling unit.
Reminding my listener, you're not responsible for its establishment, but if this was the NCA, why do we need this much vaunted border command?
I think the NCA is something which works right across the board within Europe. It's something which we've had the opportunity to keep going despite Brexit, and it's important for us to have that international law. In terms of my understanding of the setting up of the Border Command, that's going to look much more internally as to things that can be done around our specific borders and wouldn't be working with Greece or working with Belgium in the way I think this man who's been arrested is going to be tried in Belgium, or one of the other countries won't be tried here.
Lastly, as an expert in this field, when you see headlines, Britain's migration spike bigger than all other rich nations, how do you react? Is that something about you're totally relaxed? Do you think, we might need to put some checks and balances in? Frances Swaine.
Well, my personal view is that there should be always legal routes for people to come into the country. There have been some over the past few years. We know that around about 250,000 visas were issued to Ukrainians, a lot of whom are still here. And I think that was welcomed at the time. There should always be methodologies for people to come here. And if there aren't sufficient people within the country filling the jobs that are needed, of course, people should be encouraged to come and fill those jobs. There are a lot of visas being issued at the moment, particularly for workers in care homes, which, as we know, with our ageing population, is something that's very much needed.
Frances Swaine, thank you. You're an asylum and immigration lawyer at the firm Leigh.